Good morning. The October 30th, 2019 meeting of the Board of Estimates is now called to order. In the interest of promoting the order and efficiency of these hearings, persons who are disruptive to the hearing will be asked to leave the hearing room. Meetings of the Board of Estimates are open to the public for the duration of the meeting. The hearing room must be vacated at the conclusion of the meeting. Failure to comply may result in a charge of trespassing. Madam Deputy Comptroller, are there any corrections, additions, or deferrals on the agenda?
Yes, sir. Good morning. For today's agenda, the board did receive a supplemental protest for page 111, item number 3, from Time Organization, Inc. That protest was received untimely, therefore the board will not hear the supplemental protest. I have the following abstentions and a recusal to report for today. The Honorable Mayor Young will abstain on pages 9 to 10, pages 36 to 38, pages 39 to 40, pages 72 to 73, item number 4, and pages 100 to 103, item number 61. The Honorable President Scott will abstain on pages 36 to 38, pages 39 to 40, and for page 31 for item number 2 only, which is Bond Secures Community Works. The Honorable Comptroller Pratt will abstain on page 1, item number 1 for Economic International Construction Company, Inc. only, page 24, page 25, page 29, item number 3. And the city solicitor will recuse himself on page 108. The items that are on the non-routine are as follows. We're moving page 107 to the non-routine agenda, as well as page 111 has been moved to the non-routine agenda. That's 111, item number 3, which is the award to Bridgehaven, Inc. The items that are on the non-routine agenda are as follows. Page 107, page 108, page 111, item number 3, page 112, item number 1, and page 112, item number 2. Mr. President and members of the board, those are the abstentions that have been reported thus far, as well as the one recusal, and the items that are on the sorry. On 107? Okay, just a second. Just one moment, please. Okay. In addition, I've been informed that the Honorable Comptroller Pratt will also abstain on page 107. So again, members of the board, Mr. President, those are the abstentions for today's meeting, as well as the items that are on the non-routine agenda. Thank you. And the one recusal.
Thank you. I would direct the board members' attention to the memorandum from my office dated October 28th, 2019, identifying matters to be considered as routine agenda items together with any corrections and additions that have been noted by the Deputy Comptroller. I will entertain a motion to approve all the items contained on the routine agenda.
Move approval of the routine agenda, Mr. President.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. The motion carries. The routine agenda items have been adopted. The first item on the non-routine agenda can be found on page 107, Health Department Agreement. Will the parties please come forward?
Good morning. President Scott, Mary Young, Board of Estimates.
Madam, just check this one. This one's not working. And now it's on. And identify yourself for the record.
Letitia Jarasa, Commissioner of Health, Baltimore City Health Department.
Thank you, ma'am.
So I'm here to talk about the non-routine agenda item, Bright Future Mentoring, which is a sexual risk avoidance program. It's evidence-based.
What's wrong with that?
Oh, thank you. evidence-based curriculum taught to children between the ages of 9 to 13. Parental approval is required, and there are also accompanying parental workshops, and it's a part of our comprehensive approach to sexual health and education for the children in city schools and in community-based programs. So this is an after-school program. We also have during the school program called You Choose, which focuses on children in middle school and high school, and also talks about reproductive health and talks about birth control options for those students.
And thank you. Who will it be offered just to the specific schools or communities, or is this a citywide program?
I would have to ask Assistant Commissioner Rebecca Deneen, who is present with me today.
You got to come to the microphone. And you have to identify yourself.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Deneen, Assistant Commissioner for Maternal and Child Health. The curriculum is going to be offered through 4 community-based organizations, and their reach is 375 children in the city, and about 30 parents.
What's the name of the organizations?
We have Thor, Imagine Me, Bright Future Mentoring, and I Carry.
Thank you. I've heard concerns from the members of the public about the inefficiency of abstinence-focused approaches to sex ed, and I want to be sure that the programs that we're using and using our resources are effective. Do you have any comments on the effectiveness of this program and data that you guys can push to support these programs?
Yeah, so this is a federally funded program from the Administration for Child and Families, a federal agency, and the focus is on sexual risk avoidance. So they have shifted away from abstinence-only education and are really focused on sexual risk avoidance. So teaching young people how to avoid risky behaviors, for young people who are already engaging in risky behaviors, how to reduce their risk through condom use, and really talking about reproductive health.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions? I will entertain a motion.
So move.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. The motion carries. Thank you very much. The second item on the non-routine agenda can be found on page 108, Law Department Settlement Agreement and Release. Will the parties please come forward? All right. I will entertain a motion.
I move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Madam Comptroller.
Yes, Mr. President, I would like to address the settlement agreement and release on page 108 of the board agenda. And as we all know, government agencies must follow laws, policies, and procedures and there are also times when government must do what's right. This is one of those times. My heart goes out to the Raymond Gray and his family. Mr. Gray is a father of 3 who chose a life of public service dedicated to keeping people safe. Because of a tragic accident, Mr. Gray's career in law enforcement was cut short. He will require intensive therapy and medical care for the rest of his life. The amount of the city settlement with Mr. Gray is significant, and it is entirely appropriate. Mr. Gray's injuries occurred in a place where he thought he was safe and where he should have been safe while he was being trained to protect other people's lives. The very least we can do is to help him get the care he needs to recover from this terrible accident and to live the best life that he can under the circumstances. For all these reasons, I strongly support the $8 million settlement proposed by the City Law Department. Thank you.
Thank you. The third item on the non-routine agenda can be found on page 111. Item 3, Mayor's Office of Human Services. Provider agreement. Will the party please come forward?
Good morning, honorable members of the Board of Estimates. My name is Jerry Ann Anthony, and I'm the Director of the Mayor's Office of Homeless Services. I'm here today to speak to you regarding solicitation for emergency shelters, specifically a protest of Bridge Haven Emergency Shelter, protesting members of the Time organization. In April of this year, I briefed the City Council during a breakfast on transformations that were needed to the City of Baltimore's Office of Homeless Services. During that time, I spoke about a number of items that were of concern to me and needed to be addressed in order to improve services and provide services appropriate for moving individuals out of shelters and off of the streets into permanent housing. At that time, I was very clear in stating that we would be soliciting contracts this year that were different in the past. This year's contracts would contain performance outcomes, which is different than we have done so in passed in the history of the city of Baltimore. Excuse me. So in July of this year, the Mayor's Office of Homeless Services issued a solicitation for the contracting of 3 emergency shelters, 2 single adult shelters, 1 family shelter. This year's contracts contained performance outcomes capable of ensuring the city's return on our investment, meaning we're moving from a state of warehousing homeless individuals in our emergency shelter and providing them with the support that's needed to transition households into permanent housing. Today, I'm here to answer any questions or concerns that you guys may have as it pertains to the awarding of these contracts. The RFPs were reviewed by an independent panel selected by the Mayor's Office of Homeless Services. Contractees or respondents were ranked on the basis of the criteria set forth in those contracts. It should be noted that those contracts contain no previous performance measures because previous contracts did not have any performance measures within them. So that could not be a part of the ranking process in this solicitation. Contractors were asked to provide a narrative to show that they had the ability to deliver upon the performance outcomes outlined in those contracts, which included lowering the length of stay in emergency shelter, increasing exits to permanent housing, and decreasing recidivism and increasing income while they were in shelter. I'm happy to be able to answer any questions or concerns that the board may have as it pertains to these emergency shelter contracts.
Thank you. Thank you. Sir, good morning.
Good morning. My name is Robert Schulman on behalf of Time Organization and Lamont Ellis, the president of the Time Organization. And thank you for the time. With all due respect, and I heard what the board was told, they did not pick the correct company. They could pick the company that is more of the same because it's operated by a woman who operated a shelter more of the same. Here, the Time Organization is a huge company. It employs over 240 employees in Baltimore City alone. It does over $20 million a year. Its job, and it can take over immediately, is to do the emergency shelter. They have the in-house wraparound services that can do immediately the assessment, provide all of the support needed for the individual that's brought into the emergency shelter, and begin immediately to treat their needs. The company that was awarded the contract has no such ability to do that. They contract that out. But the Time company can do it themselves. They're doing it for $240,000 less than the current awardee that's doing it. How the city, with all due respect, and I mean that, can turn their back on a much bigger, more robust, more significant company that has provided these services for a very long time, I simply do not understand. They can walk in tomorrow and take it over and immediately do the assessments necessary and immediately begin the treatment with respect to whatever is required pursuant to the assessment. That's why the Time Organization should be awarded the contract.
Thank you. Thank you. I will entertain a motion.
Mr. President, I move that the board reject the protest and approve the recommendation of the Mayor's Office of Homeless Services.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Nay.
I abstain.
The motion carries. Thank you. The fourth item on the non-routine agenda can be found on page 112, Department of Audits, Audits Reports, Item 1, Bureau of Treasury and Debt Management, Audit of Negotiated Bid Bond Process, fiscal years 2014 through 2018. Will the party please come forward? Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning, Mr. President. Good morning, Mr. Mayor. Good morning, Madam Comptroller, board members. My name is Josh Pash. I am the Baltimore City Auditor.
Mr. Auditor, pull the mic. This one's a little funky today, so pull it a little closer. That's good.
We are here to present the audit report of the Treasury negotiated bid bond process. I just want to give a little bit of background information on the process since it's a rather complicated process. Part of the Department of Finance is the Treasury section, and the Treasury manages the investment portfolio for the city's investments and also issues new debt bonds, which is used to fund city operations. These bonds fall into two categories: revenue bonds or general obligation bonds, and they are either secured by specific revenue sources or they're backed by the full faith and credit of the city. We looked at the negotiated bid bond process, and there is two processes that they use. One is a competitive bid process where they just put it out into the open market and have different underwriters bid on servicing the city and issuing the bonds. And then there's a negotiated bid process, which they work with. That's broken up into two sections. One is they have a subset of pre-approved underwriters, and they will put out the proposal to them, request for proposal, and then they will send in proposals. And the other one is underwriters that are on the market who are doing analysis of typically government bonds. If they find a way to refinance and get the government a better deal, they will propose that, and the city and the Treasury has the authorization to identify if that is beneficial to the city and to go ahead and do that refinancing. While doing our audit, we used as our primary criteria the Government Finance Officers Association, or the GFOA, which is an association of state and local government officers, and they had put together a best practices for bid bond issuances, and that's what we used as our primary criteria. I just want to go through the findings now and see if you have any questions. The first finding we have was policies and procedures related to the negotiated bid bond issuance are not formalized. So formal policies identify who's responsible for what roles and what should be documented and what should be retained. The Treasury Department relies on SEC procedures and requirements for issuing public bonds and relies on those, but doesn't have their own internal policies and procedures, and that had led into some other findings that we had. So the recommendation there would be to formalize policies and procedures, and that way that would give authority, responsibility, and accountability to the different members of the city involved in the process. Finding two, the Treasury has used the same two financial advisors for 15 or more years. So the Treasury Department uses MuniCap for TIF bond issuances because they're specialized in that, and PFM for across the board. And the Treasury Department uses these financial advisors as subject matter experts to help them make the best decision in choosing an underwriter and issuing bonds. And we noticed that for MuniCap, in 2015, they did not get, there was no request for proposal. They were just, they were asked the board to renew them, and they were rolled over. And then for PFM, they did go out for bids and request for proposals, and PFM was reselected, and the Board of Estimates was requested to amend their contract update their contract and move forward. The recommendation there would be to open up and add more competitive and look for different options. The basis for this was a study that was done by Daniel Bergenstresser and Martin Luby, who are professors and work for the Brookings Institute in this area, and they found that when you have the same underwriters and the same financial advisors working on the same governmental entity for a long period of time, they did a study that found that the cost of the bond issuances goes up over time. And so having a more competitive and kind of rotating different advisors and underwriters tends to lead to better pricing for the government. So our recommendation there is to look into that. It's not to go against city policy procedures and not to go with the lowest bid, but to consider that in their new issuance of RFP for the financial advisors, which they have informed us they're planning to do. Okay, finding 3, this is basically a documentation retention. We noted that when we were looking, we selected a number of bond issuances, and we were looking for the proposals that did not win to do an analysis. And the Treasury Department doesn't retain those. They only retain the proposals for the winning underwriter. And based on that, there was no assessment to kind of see how different things were analyzed compared against each other. And then we also noted that there was a practice, which was when bids come in, that they're date stamped so that they can see that they made it in within the requirements, because if you're late with your proposal, you can be invalidated. And we tested 3 awards proposed, and the date stamps were missing. So there was no way to verify that they were received on time. Our recommendations there are basically document retention and in those areas, which goes back to the first finding of policies and procedures and hashing that out. The 4th finding was we looked at the Board of Finance. So the Board of Finance gives the final review and approval of issuing a bond or issuing it to an underwriter. And we looked, that really kind of was the back-end control, which is similar to the Board of Estimates, which is kind of like this final approval, this final review, and to ask those questions. And what we did is we looked at their financial disclosures. They're required to have financial disclosures. And we noted that 3 Board of Finance members did not file financial disclosures with the City Board of Ethics for all of the years which they were serving. And we had, considering the process and considering the concerns of conflict of interest and just appearance, we noted as a finding. The recommendation there would be to put some kind of oversight or review over the Board of Finance members and their financial disclosure. We had discussions with Treasury of who's responsible for that, and there was talks about the Ethics Board, and there was talks of Treasury, and the response from Finance is they're going to do some procedures, but then we're going to have a conversation with the Ethics Board to see if we can get what their role is. And that's a summary of the findings. Do you have any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Raymond.
Good morning, Mr. President, Mr. Mayor, Madam Controller, honorable members of the board. I'm Henry Raymond, Director of Finance. We acknowledge receipt of the audit of the debt management negotiated bid bond process conducted by the Department of Audits for fiscal years 2014 through 2018. I'll walk through each of the items one by one. So as it relates to finding number 1, the Department of Finance concurs with part of the recommendation. So the first finding and audit recommendation had 2 parts. One related to documentation, and the second part related to independent verification of financial advisors. The department presently fully discloses all of the competitive procurement process to the Board of Finance. When those decisions are made, we do it in writing. However, we do agree that we'll formalize certain of the GFO recommendations related to documentation, and we will implement that. The part of the recommendation we disagree with has to do with the independent verification of the financial advisors and underwriters' independence disclosures. The Municipal Securities Rulemaking Board, MSRB, has Rules 17 and 43 already in place that address potential financial advisor and underwriter independence and conflict of interest issues. So we don't believe that we need to perform an independent verification because it's already governed by federal rules. Also, in terms of enforcement authority and compliance authority, you have the Financial Industry Regulatory Administration, FINRA, and the Securities Exchange Commission that have federal authority over failure to disclose conflicts of interest. So we don't believe that there's anything that we need to do at the local level because it's governed by federal rule. Now, moving to the second recommendation, we disagree with the finding in its entirety. As a professional service contract, the selection of our advisors was fully compliant with all city policies and regulations. And for PFM, we did indeed have a competitive bid process. We sent out the response to at least 9 national firms. The reason PFM was selected again was the fact that PFM provided the lowest responsive bid amount. That's why they were selected. Now, the finding related to number 2 has to do with, is the city obtaining the lowest bid prices on these transactions? We believe the city is. Every time we go forward, we have the advisors do a survey nationally to determine what the market rate is, and we believe that we are getting the best rates. And the audit did not disclose any direct evidence that we are not obtaining the best prices on these transactions. Now, moving to items 3. We concur with the recommendation. And for item 4, we also agree or concur. So item 4 was financial disclosure. So what we've agreed to do is create a policy regarding the ethics disclosure, informing the board members when it's time to file, following up with the Board of Ethics to ensure or verify did they file or not. If they did not file, then inform the board members that they should do so.
Thank you. Mr. Auditor, a question. Currently, does the Ethics Code speak to the Board of Finance and who exactly has to file today before any of the things are put in place that Mr. Raymond was talking about?
It does. There are, all the board members are required to have disclosures on file with the Board of Ethics.
So, Mr. Raymond, do you guys know how, if everyone knows that they were required to file, how did folks go years without filing?
Some of the individuals did not comply with the policy. And what we've agreed to do going forward is we will go to the Board of Ethics to verify whether those individuals filed or not, and if they have not filed, advise them of the need to file.
And then I guess my question is, I can understand, maybe one time, but consistently not filing, that seems to me that it would raise a red flag, and how the auditor had to catch it and no one else either, not just from you, but from ethics, didn't catch this in the first place. Thank you. Thank you. The report has been noted.
May I respond to
Yes.
the Department of Finance and finding 1 and 2? So finding 1, we had a discussion with Finance and Treasury about the regulatory controls and oversight, and we were happy, we accepted that they have oversight and controls that require and enforce independence. What we wanted to do is we recommended that the Department of Finance do I'd say a cursory check. And so when people made their proposals, to do some background check to see if there was any filings with the regulatory boards against this particular one, to go online and check if their license certification was still valid and up to date. And then once they did that step and they said, okay, we've checked that they are certified and regulated and up to date with theirs, then they could rely on those regulations in MSRB. The other thing would be for accountants, there is a peer review, which we have an independent assessment, and to see if there's an independent assessment or a peer review for the underwriters and financial advisors, and to see if any issues came up in there, so that if something came up, that it wouldn't be, we get a proposal, we'd accept it, and then if there was a flaw in it, we missed it because they just said they were certified. And then for finding 2, that was more of a red flag than anything else. The concern with having the same people for so long. And then we also noticed with one financial advisor, PFM, they did in 2015 bid out and look for new proposals, but then they didn't look for proposals for the TIF bid provider. And so there was a bit of inconsistency in there, and we did note that they plan going forward in the near future to go have proposals for new financial advisors. So we believe that they're addressing that, even though they disagreed with it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to follow up on that. In reference to the comments regarding the first finding, I stand by my original comments that we believe with MSRB in place, SEC oversight, FINRA oversight, we're doing what needs to be done. As it relates to the second finding, we plan to bid out the vendor that has the specialized expertise with TIFs. We'll be doing that in the next year. In reference to PFM, again, we bid it out. There were 9 national firms that received the RFP, and PFM was the low bidder. We will always go with the lowest responsive bidder.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you. The report has been noted. The 5th item on the non-routine agenda can be found on page 112, Department of Audits, Audit Report. Item 2, Performance Audit Report, Mayor's Office of Human Services, fiscal years ended June 30th, 2018 and 2017. Will the party please come forward?
Good morning, Mr. President, Mr. Mayor, Madam Comptroller, board members. My name is Josh Pash. I'm the City Auditor. We are here to present the biannual performance audit of the Mayor's Office of Human Services. Our scope was fiscal years 18 and fiscal year 17, and the service centers that were selected for the performance measures that were selected was Service 741, number of participants enrolled in Baltimore Energy Initiative, Service 893, number of clients enrolled in homeless prevention and services, and Service 894, number of persons engaged by street outreach projects. Per the budget book, all 3 selected performance measures met their targets. We do have a number of findings which I would like to present. Finding 1, MOHS did not retain supporting documentation for Service Center 741 for fiscal years 18 and 17. During our audit, we found that there was a system upgrade that happened in fiscal year 19 in which the data was lost. So we weren't able to validate the target numbers and the actual numbers that were provided in the budget book. The recommendation there is for them to create a record retention policies and procedures and to retain support for the performance measures. Finding 2 were Service Center 893. So that is number of clients enrolled in homeless prevention and services. So there are contracted programs and non-contracted programs and providers, and the non-contracted programs and providers, they receive private or other funding sources, and they're not required to use Client Track, which is the system that the city uses to track the services that are provided. And because of that, the numbers that were provided, we couldn't support them totally for that portion of those non-contracted providers who don't actually use Client Track because they're not required to unless they're using state or federal funding. And that is basically data retention to validate the numbers. And the recommendation there is that since the metric does include both federally and state funded and also these private funded programs, that they come up with a process and a procedure and a way to track those also so that we can see how well the programs are doing. Finding 3, Service Centers 893 and 894. MOHS has a quality assurance team which goes out to providers and reconciles a sample of the paper files to the Client Track, and we found this as a very positive. However, there was no documentation retained of these reviews. So we're not able to see that they were completed, and we're hoping to use them as part of our audit procedures to see that they are doing a self-review and check. The recommendation there would be just to maintain that documentation so that we can use that in the control process and also see how effective that is. Finding 4, MOHS outreach services provided cannot be effectively validated. The way the program is set up, where we have people going out into the city providing services, there's not an effective way to track which services were provided, to validate, to monitor that. And the recommendation there is to develop a tracking method and independent monitoring of those services provided. There are also 2 prior findings which we reviewed. And the first prior finding was MOHS was unable to provide support for fiscal years 16 and 17 for an eviction protection grant. That was partially implemented. There wasn't not enough implemented for us to test, so we didn't test that, but we put that on our schedule for the next biannual. And then the second prior finding was the fiscal year 16 and 15 targets were not met for the percentage of persons moving from temporary to permanent housing, and that was also partially implemented. There was not enough implemented for us to do additional procedures to validate that, and so we put that on our schedule for the next biannual audit.
Thank you.
Good morning, honorable members of the Board of Estimates. I'm John Turner, Deputy Director for the Mayor's Office of Homeless Services. The first finding actually relates to the CAP centers, which are now under another agency. So first, I'd like to speak to audit finding number 2. The Mayor's Office of Homeless Services received the finding from the auditors, and we concur. In response to that finding, we have agreed to work with the vendor who supports the client track database that houses the data from all of the providers, whether they're funded through city funds, local, state, or federal funding. The goal from that exercise will be for us to work with the vendor to install a partition to segregate data between funded and non-funded providers so that the data reported out going forward would indicate whether or not these funders are required to utilize the system or whether they're not. Also, moving forward, the numbers that we report out to BBMR for our projections will only include providers who are funded and who are required to use the system, and that is in agreement with the recommendation from the auditors. For finding number 3, the Mayor's Office of Homeless Services received the finding, and we concur. While the auditors were unable to find documentation of the compliance monitoring that took place in 17 and 18. It was not that the documentation is not retained. The issue is that all of the programs from the agency were not audited annually. So there was a select, based on a risk assessment, certain providers or programs were selected and they received compliance monitoring. The corrective action has already been implemented. In July 1st of this year, the Mayor's Office of Homeless Services revised our policy to mandate that all programs funded through the agency receive an annual compliance monitoring. For finding number 4, MOHS received the finding and we concur. Pursuant to the recommendation from the auditors, we will assign an independent staff person who does not work with the street outreach team to perform a reconciliation in coordination with our fiscal team to ensure that what resources are assigned to clients have actually been distributed, and those that were not distributed have been returned to inventory. For the FY 15 and 16 findings, concurrent to what the auditor stated, there just was no data. We were unable to retrieve the historical data to respond to those findings.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Going back to the first one, no, that would be the second one. How can you track something from people we have no control over, who are doing things independent of the Mayor's Office of Homelessness? If we're not funding them and they don't give us the information, why should you track it?
Mr. Mayor, what you've mentioned is a dilemma. It's a challenge that we have. the U.S. the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, which provides about $30 million of our housing funding, mandates that we keep the HMIS, the Homeless Management Information System database, open to any providers that provide services to homeless in the community, because their goal is to track all homeless needs in a continuum, and that's how they make funding decisions based on what the need is of the community. So it's a challenge that we have as well.
Well, do they require that these entities that are not really controlled by the city, do they require them to put information in the city track? I mean, the client track?
They require us to allow it. The providers who are not receiving money from HUD, there's really no oversight, so they can't be mandated to use it. We're required to allow providers who are not receiving federal funding but still want to utilize the system to ensure that the folks that they serve are captured in the total community number of services. We allow them the opportunity. We provide training, and they agree to an annual data quality review, but there's no true oversight to ensure that they either utilize the system or do not.
So you wouldn't really be able to get no accurate data anyway.
Well,
So why
that's-
are we tracking it? That's my question. We should not be tracking anything that we don't control.
So, Mr. Mayor, to that point, in line with the recommendation from the auditors, we're going to ask the vendor to put a partition in the system which will separate the data from those voluntary users, which is data we really can't control, we really can't validate, and then the other data would be those who are funded, who are required. That data we can verify and we can validate, and we would report out accordingly.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. The report has been noted. As there is no more business before the board, we will recess until bid opening at 12 noon.
My ladybug in here.
We've got 2 minutes, actually.
Oh, do we?
Clock.
Good afternoon. The Board of Estimates is now in session for the receiving and opening of bids. In the interest of promoting the order and efficiency of these proceedings, persons who are disruptive to the meeting will be asked to leave the boardroom. Meetings of the Board of Estimates are open to the public for the duration of the meeting. The boardroom must be vacated at the conclusion of the meeting. Failure to comply may result in a charge of trespassing. There are no addenda have been received for today. The board would like to recall solicitation B50005795, Laboratory Analysis Service, to accept and open the bid submitted by Air, Water, and Soil Laboratories, Inc. The bid was submitted timely but was not open.
And no bid bond, right?
No bid bond. As I said, the bid is submitted by Air, Water, and Soil Laboratories, Inc. The total dollar amount is $715,573. $715,573.
All right, this will be referred to the Bureau of Procurement for review. Okay, thank you. Yep.
The next item is from the Bureau of Procurement, B50005888, OEM Parts and Service for General Motors heavy-duty trucks with no bid bond. The bidder is Bob Bell Chevrolet, and the total bid amount is $216,096.75. $216,096.75.
Okay, this will be referred to Bureau of Procurement for review. Thank you.
The next item is from the Bureau of Procurement, B50005894. Provide inspections, service, and repairs for fire extinguishers with no bid bond. The bidder is Fire Safety Company. The total bid price for 3 years is $258,585.75. That's $258,585.75.
I apologize, but I didn't hear whether there was a bid bond or
None
not.
required.
None required.
Okay, thank you. I apologize.
The next item is from the Bureau of Procurement, B50005919, OEM Parts and Service for JCB and Leeboy Equipment with no bid bond required. The bidder is Valley Supply and Company, Inc. The total bid price is $326,111.40. That's $326,111.40.
Okay, this will be referred to the Bureau of Procurement for review. Oops,
The
sorry.
Item is Bureau of Procurement, B50005924. Personal care / homemaker and chore services for senior care clients with a bid bond. The company is Dependable Services Group, LLC.
What name did she say? Yeah, did we do this one?
Yeah.
We did?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just didn't cross it off. Okay. Okay.
Yes.
Which company?
This is dependable.
The company is Dependable Services Group, LLC,
With a bid?
with a bid bond,
Okay.
with a check.
Okay, thanks.
Total bid amount is $162,500. $162,500.
Where's the number on this?
Check number.
Might not have it. I think that's the account number.
It's a cashier's check.
It's a cashier's check, so it's just like, yeah, so it's just cash. Okay. I got it.
Okay.
Yep.
That's my handwriting. Okay, thanks, Glenn. I'm good.
The next bidder is Trustworthy Staffing Solutions, LLC, with a check. Total bid amount is $186,000. That's $186,000. The next bidder is Elizabeth Clooney Personal Care, LLC, with a check. Total bid amount, $171,500. $171,500. That's why it's up there. I know. The next bidder is Vitalis Healthcare, Inc. with a check. Total bid amount, $123,500. $123,500. The next bidder is Amazing Care Health Services, LLC.
Check. It does? Oh.
Let's see what's in there.
It says USB. What says USB?
Is it empty?
They have a check. This is the whole bill.
Should have been on top. Okay. Where's the dollar?
I guess we'd say subject to verification.
Yeah.
Also says original, I don't know if this thing. Bid bond. This looks like it's all tax documents.
The dollar amount.
Page 9.
Yeah, what's the name of the company?
This is the original, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Again, the name of the company is Amazing Care Health Services, LLC. Total bid amount, $120,000. That's $120,000.
Subject to bid bond verification.
Subject to bid bond verification.
I need to ask a question. Should I just put like a dash? Or
Should we pricing needs,
Or question mark?
need to verify.
Need to, okay.
Yeah.
All of these bids will be referred to the Bureau of Procurement with the need to verify the bid bond for Amazing Care. The bid bond for Amazing Care Health Services. Thank you.
The next item is procurement, the Bureau of Procurement, B50005931, Victim and Witness Services Marketing Campaign. No bid bond required and no bids received.
Okay. Thank you.
The next item is the Department of Public Works, TR 19017, conduit system reconstruction at various locations citywide with a bid bond. The bidder is Spinelli Companies with a bid bond. Total dollar amount $6,963,300. $6,963,300.
This is a different bid. This is Allied Contractors. So, yeah, all right.
Okay, hold
So that, I'll hold on to this one.
Okay.
That's,
Right.
yes, okay.
Should I repeat it?
They have a bid on it, too. Yeah.
Okay. Let me repeat this one. This one is, the bidder is Spinelli Companies with a bid bond. Total bid amount, $6,963,300. That's $6,963,300. Okay. The next bidder is Allied Contractors, Inc. with a bid bond. Total dollar amount, $6,382,300. $6,382,300. The next bidder is Highlander Contracting Company, LLC,
With a bid bond.
with a bid bond. Total dollar amount, $6,399,300. $6,399,300.
Okay, these will be referred to the Department of Transportation for review.
The last item is from the Department of General Services, GS 18833, Baltimore Visitor Center renovations with a bid bond.
Is this old one? This is old one.
So, let me see, yeah. The bidder is C&N Associates LLC
With a bid bond.
with a bid bond. Total dollar amount, $398,554. $398,554. The next bidder is Bob Andrews Construction, Inc. With a bid bond. Total dollar amount, $393,500. $393,500. The next bidder is Boulevard Contractors Corp. With a bid bond. Total dollar amount, $338,789.
Was this Boulevard?
Yes. Probably add something at some point.
This is on the duplicate, but that's the original.
It's concerned.
I think, if I recall,
It's always superseded.
superseded number. So you already read 330.
Right, I read
Okay.
330.
And that's probably what it would be, yeah.
All right, well,
And they could figure it out.
okay, then we'll let it go. That's what my just read the numbers again and then
For Boulevard Contractors Corp., the total bid is $338,789. $338,789. The next bidder is Triumpho Builders, Inc.
With a bid bond.
With a bid bond. Total dollar amount, $319,000. That's $319,000.
Okay, these will be referred to Department of General Services for review.
There being no other business before this board, it is now adjourned.